Hello and welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. We're one man down this week, but I'm delighted to welcome Adrian Clarke and Mark O'Haire to the podcast. We're going to cover the usual four games, EFL, European and Best Bets. Before we do that, we will take a look at the Premier League outright. And before we do that, Adrian, just a quick little check-in. How are you? It's been a hectic week in terms of the Premier League title race, but quick little one-liner on Casemiro there last night getting a yellow card.
Yeah, look, as an Arsenal fan, obviously when I'm working, everything's neutral, everything's non-biased. You've got to keep an even perspective. But last night I was like, yes, get in when Casemiro got booked because he's a very important player. It doesn't mean that Arsenal are going to win that match, but I do think it makes life much more difficult for Manchester United, who've got used to having him in that injury room, and they've been very good defensively of late. So. It's got to be a boost for the Gunners.
And yeah, Mark, you were talking a little bit about Olysier's lack of celebration with the goal. It was one of the best goals. And after we were talking, Adrian doesn't mind the non-celebration. I think the crowd doesn't get into it as much when the player celebrates. So I was quite annoyed he didn't celebrate.
Yeah, I was on cards, so I was willing him to get his shirt off or go and celebrate with the crowd or do something wild, but he didn't. I can understand it in certain situations and scenarios, but I think when you've been trailing to one of the best teams in the Premier League and score a worldie like that in stoppage time to earn your team a point, your team have been sort of, not been playing particularly well, shall we say, in recent weeks. That's a huge point for Palace. Could easily be a season turner, and just to be so nonchalant about it was a bit frustrating from my perspective.
Yeah, and look, it was one of the great free kicks in fairness to him. We'll have a look at those Premier League outright prices. Now, we're going to be talking a lot of these teams, so I did want to focus a little bit on Newcastle's price because effectively it is a four-horse race. The current prices on Matchbook, we have Arsenal available at odds on 1.85. Manchester City are 2.5 or 6-4. Manchester United were 16.0 after last night's draw. They're out to 23.0. And Newcastle are 55.0 and it's bars 390.0. Effectively, any price you like. Adrian, I'll hand over to you this just on Newcastle's price to 55.0. Eddie Howe's obviously done a phenomenal job. With a couple of late transfer signs, is there any chance of a small title charge from Newcastle this season?
There is a chance because they're so hard to beat and they don't concede goals. But I have to say that they are the outsiders of the four, aren't they, Newcastle United? I wouldn't be putting anything on them myself. I just think that they're still a little bit light in certain positions on the field. A little bit like Arsenal. If injuries and suspensions bite, you do wonder whether the cracks will begin to appear. But I saw them in the flesh the other week in the semi-final against Leicester. I was really impressed. Wonderful performance against Leicester. They are the real deal. But from where they are, I don't think they're going to win the title. It's my honest opinion.
Yeah, Mark, for you, I guess it's definitely a long shot, and it's probably a 3, 4, 5 year plan for Newcastle to eventually charge for a title. But just given the season, Arsenal are odds on, as we've discussed. That World Cup, we don't know the effects of it yet. If there's any season that there could be another Leicester, this could be it.
Yeah, for sure. We said from the outset it is going to be an abnormal season in that regard, and Newcastle have been pulling up trees since the start of the season. Really, lost just the one game and the best defence in the team, as Adrian says, very difficult to beat. My main drawback would probably be: are they fluent enough? Do they score enough goals consistently to win tight matches? They do draw a fair amount of games, and last weekend they got out of jail a little bit against Fulham with the Mitrovic penalty, which wasn't allowed. They didn't get that luck against Leeds when drawing 0-0 with St James's a fortnight ago, so perhaps it evens itself out a little bit there. But yeah, they've got a very solid base. They're very competitive, but I think Newcastle's eyes are firmly set on top four rather than any further. They do have the advantage of no European football, which will come around, from February onwards. Really, I can't see an obvious drop off from Newcastle, but if you can see the likes of Spurs, Chelsea, and Liverpool all struggling this season, it wouldn't be beyond the wildest stretch to see Newcastle suffer a similar blip at some point in the campaign. So, and I think it's worth re-emphasising as well that we've got a huge amount of football still to play. I know we're sort of heading towards the end of January, but we're basically only at the halfway stage of the season. So it's going to be quite an intense final 4.5 months, really. everything is possible. We saw what Liverpool achieved last season from absolutely nowhere from Christmas to be in the title running. I would be surprised if Spurs, Chelsea, and Liverpool continue to underperform between now and the end of May. So, challenge is going to be even stiffer, even harder. And Eddie Howe talked about that at the end of last week as well, about that game against Fulham. We're delighted with what we've achieved, but things are just going to get harder from here on in. But respecting what they're doing and respecting the journey that they're going on. But I think possibly to win the title might be a step too far. I think they'd be more than happy for top 4.
Yeah, Arsenal feel short, Dan. To me, I've got to say, odds on feels it's not something.
First time this season, Adrian. The market changed last weekend. First time Arsenal have been favourites this season. So, what is it? 8 points the gap, and they still have to play Man City twice, and Arsenal will be underdogs in both of those matches. So, I wouldn't be rushing to back Arsenal at the prices.
Not at that price. No, I think in the here and now, I think City probably are the best value odds against. What did you say it was? 2.5. Yeah, I think they're still capable of catching Arsenal. I think the bottom line is if Arsenal maintain these standards, no one will catch them. No chance. Yeah. But that's a big if because of the squad depth, because the lack of options on the bench at the moment. You think during that busy second half of the season, Arsenal will be stretched, and that's where there might be one or two slip-ups. But personally, I hope not. But I think that might happen.
Well, look, Arsenal 15 wins, 2 draws, 1 defeated. It's unlikely they'll probably go on that run. So you think they might come back to the pack a small bit. Last thing on Newcastle. Newcastle conceded 11 goals, Arsenal 14 goals. The next is Man City at 18. And then you're up to the 20s and 21 in Chelsea, which surprised me a little bit. But just shows you how good that Newcastle defence. And basically, there's only 3 teams that can get within double their goals conceded tally. So definitely give them a squeak at that price.
We all thought Eddie Howe couldn't coach a team defensively, didn't we? We thought he was an attack-minded manager with no organisational skills at defence. How wrong we all were.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They work so hard, unbelievably fit. I think Newcastle. Again, I think sometimes you can't tell about a team until you see them in the flesh. Or it certainly helps when you see them in the flesh. And I just thought they were like a machine. They're really, really fit and strong. And guys like Botman and Trippier and Pope have made an unreal difference to that Newcastle side. No doubt about that.
Yeah, look, this might be a section we'll come back to every few weeks. If you do like it, let us know in the comments in the chat. But I think it's definitely worthwhile checking in on that market throughout the season. And before we get into what we're going to cover today, a reminder that we're going to have a podcast double the odds on Best Bets, on podcast Best Bets, up to £50 in cash for new customers, and that's going to stay to the end of January. So that's up to £50 in cash. If you enter the bonus code podcast and back either Adrian or Mark's best bet, it'll double the odds up to £50 in cash. So definitely an opportunity, A, to follow the guys' podcast tips in, but B, you'll obviously get the best odds. You already will get the best odds on Matchbook with that double the odds concession. You definitely will. And if you are watching the live stream, hit that like button, do subscribe to the channel, and comment below your best bet for the weekend. We'll get straight into the action. We'll start off with Arsenal versus Manchester United. It's the big game here, Sunday, 4:30 live on Sky Sports. And take a look at the betting as we have it on Matchbook.com. You can back Arsenal at current prices of 1.95. A bit of a market move there from last night. Manchester United, 4.2. And the draw is available at 4.0. Both teams to score, is available. Yes, 1.69. No is 2.3. The agent handicap line sees Manchester United get a half a goal head start at 2.04. And the goal line is quite high for this. It's 3.0. And that's the total. So, Mark, over to you on this one. And you did put Arsenal down as a bet. I think they were around the 2.06 mark before the game last night. Without Casemiro, the line has moved from 2.06 to 1.95. Just explain that move, obviously, with the Casemiro news, and where are you at currently for a bet?
Yeah, so I put my selection in before he was ruled out through suspension, and clearly the market has reacted to that by moving the Arsenal price by a tick, really, and possibly could be more than that because he is so influential in the Manchester United team. We've talked about Erik ten Hag and the rebirth, the rebuild, the rejuvenation of Man United so far this season. A lot of it's been talked about defensively, but I think, in fact, Casemiro has possibly been the one standout player, particularly on Wednesday night. Bar that foul, that tackle, where he did collect the card, I thought he was absolutely immense. with the ball, without the ball, attacking, defensively, just across the park, really, just an all-round competitor, really. And it's no surprise, is it? Because he's won multiple Champions Leagues and dominated in Europe for many, many years, starting midfielder for Brazil. But to see his impact and the way he has improved that Manchester United team, the balance of the side with and without the ball, defensively and going forward, it's enormous. It's significant. And so I absolutely expected the move to occur. Bit disappointed we didn't get to talk about Arsenal as an odds against proposition for this match. I said about it off air that Manchester City went away to Old Trafford last weekend to play Manchester United, and they went off around 1.8-ish. Well, Arsenal are a bigger price at home to Manchester United. They're 8 points further clear on the Premier League table. They've dropped points just 3 times in 18 games. So in sort of that sense, you can still see a lot of reason to be with Arsenal. And actually, I probably would be if I had to have a strong view on this game, because there's just playing with supreme confidence, and the way in which they handled that game at Tottenham last weekend with minimum fuss. You could see the players, not just in this match, but throughout the season, just growing in belief, the realisation that they're on a journey, a special journey, that they could achieve something really special this season. It wasn't by fluke, it was complete design. And I think the underlying metrics this season in the Premier League show that Arsenal have to be taken very seriously. They're trending alongside, either above, below, or just about the same with Manchester City across almost all the major metrics, whether it's expected points, expected goals, which is, incredible achievement. Even when Liverpool were running City close in the last couple of years, City was still clear in those standards. But actually, if you look at the last 8, 12 and 16 game splits, Arsenal are actually above Man City in terms of expected points. Their form has been the stronger. So you could make a strong argument to say that Arsenal are perhaps being underrated for this game, even before Casemiro's absence. So, I would be pro-Arsenal. And look, Man United, I've been really impressed with the journey that they've been on, particularly since that dreadful August, really. But I would say I've not been totally bowled over by their away performances so far this season. A lot of what they've done right and good has come at Old Trafford. And I think if you look at some of their away matches in isolation, whether it's Southampton or Leicester, some of the matches that they have won, basically majority of their wins have come against the bottom 6, and they've not been overly convincing in any of them, really. So take out Casemiro from that team, I still have slight wrinkles about their ability to create chances in tight matches. I didn't think they were especially creative against Palace, for example, on Wednesday night, but still were the better team for the most part. So, a couple of concerns there. And the fact that this is a fixture which Arsenal have won in 5 of the last 7 renewals at the Emirates. And as I say, United, I think, showed vulnerabilities at Wolves recently, at Fulham recently, at Villa recently. We know Arsenal's speciality is matches at the Emirates. So they are the best performing team at home this season. I think you could make a case for them winning. As I say, I had Arsenal at 2.06. The price has moved. Just me being silly and not wanting to back an odds-on price, so I'm going to sort of forego that and actually back up what Adrian is going to say and his best bet for this match, because it's an attractive price if you want to be pro-Gunners.
Yeah, Adrian, over to you. Mark mentions Arsenal's great record in this fixture. So my question to you is, what's more likely, Arsenal to win the Premier League title at 1.85 or Arsenal to win on Sunday at 1.95?
That's so hard. I think they're more likely to win this match than the title. Yeah. That's my honest opinion. So the price is good. I like Arsenal and under 4.5 just to get it out there in terms of my selection for the game. It's a really nice price, 2.42. The reason being, I don't think it'll be a crazy high scoring match. Erik ten Hag will, I think, show Arsenal a lot of respect, and he's also made them a far better unit without the ball. There's no doubt about that. Now, how much of a difference has Casemiro made to that? That is the unknown or the unquantifiable figure, but you suspect it's a fair bit. But even so, the numbers are very, very strong for Manchester United. I was looking at their expected goals against over the course of this season. It's gone under 1 expected goals against 11 times this season. And 9 of the last 12 games have gone under 1 in terms of expected goals against. And 9 of those 11 have come in this more recent run where Casemiro has been a regular in the side. So take from that what you will. I don't think they'll roll over. I think they'll make this really difficult for Arsenal to to win the game. I back up exactly what Mark said about United's away form. I think there's still a bit of an unknown quantity. I mean, only 3 road trips against current top 10 teams. They lost 6-3 at City. They lost 4-0 at Brentford, and they drew 1-1 at Chelsea. As 4 road
Lucky
trips.
to get that draw as well at Chelsea, weren't they?
Yeah, and they did beat Fulham. So 4 road trips, but only 1 win against current top 10 teams on the road, Manchester United. So they're yet to really prove themselves away to the best sides. That's the message there. Arsenal flying. It was a great performance against Tottenham. I'd expect them to take that confidence into this one and hopefully rip into Manchester United from the start of the match. It's going to be a tough game. They're absolutely not a gimme here. Arsenal, not especially with Rashford on the counter. I think he's really, really dangerous. Bruno Fernandes, I think we shouldn't underestimate his influence this season. No one's created more chances in open play than Bruno this season, and not many people are talking about that. So they've got 2 excellent players in forward areas that can hurt Arsenal. So not a gimme. But my pick would be Arsenal to win this game and under 4.5 goals.
Yeah, Bruno Fernandes, definitely danger man. I've been impressed with him the last few games. He's definitely coming back to that early Manchester United form he showed in his career. But we're going to lock in that Arsenal under 4.5 goals as a play.
Quite coincidental that Bruno started to find form when a certain other Portuguese player has left the building.
You tell me, Mark.
Not saying anything.
And even they're playing a lot better without him. I definitely think that was in hindsight and probably a bit of foresight from Manchester United. That was a poor piece of business to bring an old cult hero back. But look, he scored that goal against Newcastle and the place went wild with Sue. So maybe it was worth it. But Arsenal under 4.5 goals, 2.42. We'll lock that in as agreement with the guys. And we'll move on to the next game, which arguably it would have been as big, if not bigger, than the Arsenal Manchester United game. But given how these two teams have done this season, it's definitely second in the running order. And well deserved. It's Liverpool versus Chelsea, and Liverpool are odds on here at Anfield 1.93, Chelsea 4.3, and the draw is available at 4.0. You can currently back both teams to score yes, another low price at 1.71. The Asian handicap line sees Chelsea get a half a goal start, and the total for this game is 2.5, and that's shaded a good bit towards the over at 1.77. So Adrian, look, I was surprised a little bit with your selection here. I know Chelsea have also been in bad form of late, but outside of maybe midweek with Wolves, Liverpool haven't played well for weeks.
No, they haven't. No, they've been poor. I mean, they had shockers, didn't they? At Brentford and at Brighton. But I mean, have you watched Chelsea lately? I mean, they're not. Yeah, they're not a great side at the moment. They're very much a work in progress. I think there was a slight upturn in performance from Chelsea over the last 2 or 3 games, and they will be boosted by Mudrik's arrival. Obviously, Joao Felix is out. But Mudryk on the counter-attack, if he's fit enough to play, will be an option for them because he does offer something different. And we know that Liverpool will get those fullbacks high and wide, and there will be gaps for a winger to potentially run into. So keep your eye on that if he's available. But Chelsea haven't beaten anyone above 11th in the entire season. Wow. So how can you back Chelsea here? How can you really have any faith in them to go to Anfield and win the game or even draw it? I mean, yeah, I just think that their form in general has been poor. I think on the road, not good. In those 8 matches, I've only played 8 against top half teams. They've scored 5 goals, Chelsea, in 8 matches. So I find it impossible to get on their side. I'm not sure about goals. Initially, you'd think goals because it's Liverpool, because they score and they concede. But Chelsea, I think, will be a bit more circumspect under Graham Potter here. Liverpool at home, I mean, they're still pretty strong, aren't they? They've scored in every home game this season, Liverpool in the Premier League. They're the second top scorers at home behind Manchester City, although obviously that 9-0 against Bournemouth skews it a little. They're always worth a goal or 2 at Anfield. And this isn't a Chelsea team that looks full of goals at the moment. So if I've got to pick a winner, I'm going to go with Liverpool. The form book, they've won 4 of their last 8, Liverpool. Chelsea, 2 of their last 8. So again, I think everything is leaning towards a home win. But I do agree that their recent performances have been abysmal. And they'll have to raise their standards here. But yeah, I'm going to go with them. Yeah, I don't know whether they're going to be made to look silly or not. But I'm going to go with Liverpool and under 4.5 goals again. because I don't see this being a goal fest. Not with Potter knowing that his Chelsea team are a bit goal shy. Let's be honest. So he's going to go into this game thinking the max we're going to score here is 2, probably 1. So we need to be very, very tight at the back, and because of that, I think this will be a lower scoring affair.
Yeah, Mark, you're on similar lines here, and I guess the reason I push back a little bit on Chelsea is it a sort of game that might suit a Potter's Chelsea, an out of form Potter's Chelsea, just given his record with Brighton and how well they can dominate games, and the way Liverpool might come at Chelsea, they could potentially hit them with the break here.
Maybe. I think I'd flip it around and say this might be the game that might suit Liverpool, actually, because you're back at Anfield after a disastrous result and you're playing a big team. I know there's not a regional rivalry, but there certainly is a bit of a grudge game between Liverpool and Chelsea going back to the Champions League days of Mourinho and Benitez. So I think they'll be absolutely up for it, and I think the return of Darwin Núñez is huge for that Liverpool team. He gives that forward line so much more than what they had at Brighton. I know there still is major issues in defensive midfield, and surprised they made that move for Cody Gakpo when the midfield urgently requires regeneration. But there we go. I just think Liverpool going forward have enough to cause this Chelsea team more problems and vice versa, really, which is probably saying something when Liverpool have kept just 4 clean sheets all season. But going forward, you might surprise people, but Liverpool's expected goals output in the Premier League this season is as good as anyone, really. They're creating loads and loads of chances. Their issue has been converting those chances, and their issue has been keeping the ball out the back of the net. But I just think Darwin's chaos, if you like, bringing to the game will unsettle that Chelsea rearguard. And Adrian's right. There's not a lot to be sort of scared about with this Chelsea team. Whether you look at the full season form tables over 4, 8, 12 or 16 fixtures, the underlying metrics are not pretty. Chelsea rank as a bottom half team, a mid-table team at best. They've won 2 of the last 10 in the league. They've lost 5 of those. They're winless in 5 on the road. But their matches do tend to be quite tight. Only 2 of the last 11 have gone overs. 10 of those 11 went under 3.5, let alone under 4.5. And actually only 2 of Liverpool's matches at Anfield have gone over 4.5, which was the Brighton game and De Zerbi's first fixture in the Bournemouth match. So I think this is, all set up to be a tighter match than perhaps we were normally accustomed to with Liverpool. But I just give them the edge because Chelsea's injury list is enormous. They're coming to Anfield without Reece James, Ben Chilwell, Kante, Sterling, Fofana, 5 starters from your team immediately out of the equation. No João Felix, who made such a great impact against Fulham. No Dennis Zakaria, I think, who's been a decent player in recent weeks. No Pulisic, no Loftus-Cheek. The list goes on, really. They've earned 11 points from 10 away games. They've lost 5 of those. They've scored 9 goals in 10 away, which means in 8 of those 10 away matches, they've scored 0 or 1 goal. And they've not yet travelled to Arsenal, City, Man United, Spurs, or Liverpool. And as Adrian says, winless against the top half in 8. They've scored 0 or 1 goal in 7 of those fixtures. So I don't see them scoring more than a solitary goal, and I think Liverpool can score a couple themselves. So, I think that the increase from backing Liverpool at odds on, which I agree is probably a bit of a turn-off, to the 2.4 Liverpool to win and under 4.5 goals does appeal more, but it's not a match I've got a really strong view on, in all honesty.
Yeah, and the guy's not as strong in this selection, but we will lock in Liverpool and under 4.5 goals. It was one of the marquee games, so we had to cover it. So 2.4 is the price there if you do fancy a bet on the 12:30 Saturday game. And what we did then is ask the guys for a game each. Adrian went for El Sacchio, West Ham versus Everton. I asked for a bit of caution on that on Tuesday, saying I'm not sure these managers will get to this game. And David Moyes, there was betting suspended and everything on him getting sacked. We're recording Thursday afternoon. He should make it surely at this stage. West Ham are 1.83. Everton 5.2, and the draw is available at 3.8. You can currently back both teams to score yes at 2.04, and no is available at 1.93. Everton are getting half a goal head start on the Asian handicap line at 2.18, and the total is 2.5, and that's a good bit shaded towards the under. So look, Adrian, was your game of choice, so I will go back to you for this one for a selection. Where are you kind of looking? It's going to set up as a tense game, I'm guessing.
I think so, yeah. I do think there's a reasonable chance that if somebody loses this game, that might be the end of the road. So and obviously there's a bit of extra spice in it. Frank Lampard, former West Ham player, but no love lost between the fans and Frank. They would revel, the Hammers fans, in potentially putting him out of a job. And of course, David Moyes is an Everton legend, isn't he? So yeah, it's a really, really interesting game. West Ham have lost 6 of their last 7, so that is a concern. But Everton's away form is awful, isn't it? And particularly in London, winless in 9 on the road in the capital. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure who's going to win the game. I'd probably lean towards West Ham, but I looked at their price and they're very skinny. Odds on 1.83. For a team that's lost 6 of their last 7, I can't get on board with West Ham at that particular price, not even against Everton. So I'm looking at goals or the style of the game, and I'm thinking no goals at halftime. I think under 0.5 goals up until the break is a really strong pick here. And I'll tell you why. No team has scored fewer first half goals in the Premier League than Everton and West Ham this season. Both have only got 6 first half goals all season. They played 19 matches each. It's a lot of halves of football, and they've each scored just 6 times. So they're slow starters. They're not the sort of teams that are going to come flying out of the traps and looking to bang the door down right away. They're going to keep things pretty tight. And I think given the pressure of the game, that adds weight to the theory that this might be cautious, defensive, conservative, and also a little bit scrappy. Let's be honest. I do think Danny Ings' arrival will lift West Ham. I think Everton wanted him, didn't get him. So the narrative might suggest that he has a part to play in this. But yeah, I'm going to go with 0-0 at half time. I think the price is fantastic.
Yeah, and 43 minutes. The bet lasted Everton Southampton, Adrian, last week. That was harsh.
Yeah. It was harsh. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed about that, I've got to say. But it is what it is for the same reasons. You just got to look at the background, look at the backstory, and think what's most likely. And I think what price have we got here on under 0.5 goals? I think it's 2.92, isn't it?
2.92, yeah.
Yeah, I mean 2.92. I think is really good. I can absolutely see this being 0-0 at half time.
Yeah, absolutely. And with liquidity going up between now and Saturday 3 o'clock, you could easily sneak up to 3.0 depending on the betting over the next couple of days. Great comment here from Kyle on YouTube. If it's a draw, will they both get sacked? It's one of the it's by name. You lose or you draw, you're gone. That's the sort of rules. Mark, Adrian did touch on Danny Ings, right? And I don't know if you caught David Moyes' Diary of a CEO podcast interview during the week, but he did mention that he decided not to sign Alvarez this time last year, I think it was, or maybe 18 months ago, and he ended up going to Manchester City. And a lot of West Ham fans weren't happy he A, revealed that, and B, it happened. And now they've gone from sort of potentially signing an Alvarez to signing a Danny Ings. It just struck me as soon as I saw those 2 news stories back to back, I thought a slight panic buy given everything we're interested in. What's your thoughts on Danny Ings?
Yeah, not massively inspired. He was on a huge amount of money at Aston Villa. That was a mega deal really for Villa and Ings, and I can't imagine West Ham have kind of got him on the cheap, for example, and he's an aging striker with an injury record. So I think there possibly would be better options out there, better value options. I know money doesn't really matter in the Premier League these days because these pots are huge and enormous, and they can sort of allow clubs to spend silly amounts and get away with it. But I wasn't massively inspired, in all honesty. I think West Ham's problem so far this season has been actually chance creation more than chance conversion. Both have been an issue, but I think probably that the former would be more of a concern than the latter, because actually it might surprise people. But if you look at the expected points tallies, West Ham are in the top 8. If you look at expected goals ratio, expected goals supremacy, West Ham are again expected to be in the top 8. They've only won 4 Premier League games this season and scored 15 goals, which is the joint second lowest. But they've only lost expected goals count in 7 of 19 Premier League games. Only 5 clubs have won the expected goals count more often than West Ham as well. So they have been one of the big underachievers, or the biggest underachiever in the Premier League in terms of market expectations, but also underlying metrics as well. And I think last weekend probably encapsulated that as good as anything, really. They were quite competitive away at Wolves, and David Moyes just completely resigned at the end, saying this is how it's going at the moment. We're playing and being competitive, but not getting results. And, when things like that start to occur, it's normally the manager, a managerial change, which kind of comes in to rectify matters. So we'll see what happens. But, if West Ham have been underachieving, Everton have been, achieving exactly what they've been putting into fixtures so far. They just look like a broken club on and off the field. The decision week by week to sort of replace Rafa Benitez with Frank Lampard seems even more baffling as it was back then. He was sacked when Everton was 16th and 4 points above the bottom three. Lampard will be in charge for a year on the 31st of January, so 10 days or so. He's had 37 Premier League games. Everton have lost 20 of those, averaged fewer than 1 point per game and 0.92 goals per game. He has the worst loss percentage of any other permanent manager in Everton's entire history. It really is quite bleak, and it's not like he hasn't had funds or collateral to go and improve the squad and add to the squad. He has, and he has got some decent players at his disposal. Everton has just been appalling, really, and they're sort of trending to being the worst, or at least in the bottom two, along with Bournemouth across almost every available metric. Their away record has been atrocious for a long time. They've won just 3 times in 28 in the Premier League since the start of last season. So you can see why West Ham were rated quite firm favourites for this game, and understandably so. But yeah, I agree with Adrian. Opposed goals in this game. If you combine the two teams' records, 25 of 38 Premier League matches have gone under. If you just look at home and away records, 13 of 18 of their games have gone under as well. There'd be desperation not to lose in this match. The recent form of both is pretty rank. I think it'll be an edgy, nervous atmosphere on the field. And off the field, things could get quite ugly because both aren't exactly the biggest fans of their regimes right now either. So, I'd be looking at under 2.5 goals at 1.84. But also, I was coming from a very similar angle to Adrian. The market's not up quite yet, but being a little bit more safe, if you like, more pragmatic as I tend to be. But you will be able to back under 1 first half goal at around about 1.8. Got the same stat here about neither team being the most fluent goal scorers in the first half, but basically backing under 1 first half goal at 1.8 means if there's exactly 1 goal, it's money back. If there's 0 goals, you get paid out. If there's 3 or more goals in the first half, your bet loses. I would eat my hat if there's 3 or more goals in the first half of this match. So I think the worst you'll get is a push, but obviously the bigger price is much more attractive with Adrian. The issue being an early goal and you could be out of the game. So just a bit more pragmatism there from me, as it tends to be, but under 2.5 goals is also a strong shout.
I was going to lean towards you, Adrian, but I think Mark kind of brings both of you guys together with that selection. So that's under 1.0 first half goals, as Mark mentioned. A lot more liquidity in markets available, and that will be in and around the 1.8 mark. What we'll be doing on Matchbook Insights is putting up all the guys' selections, but if you're listening on the podcast, we will have a fun podcast pick from either of the guys. I see a comment here on YouTube saying Moyes asked for signings, not to sign-ings. People have been kicked off.
Very good. I like
People have been kicked off the YouTube chat for less than that, Steve. But we'll let you away with that one. And if you do listen to the podcast on a Friday or Saturday, we are live usually around 1 p.m. on a Thursday. So you never know what might happen in the chat. So do get involved. If you are free on a Thursday at around 1 o'clock, we'll go to the 4th game. And this is Mark's game of choice here, Leicester versus Brighton. And I knew Mark's angle the minute I saw him putting this bet in. So we'll take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. Leicester 3.65. Brighton are available at 2.14. And the draw is 11-4 or 3.75. You can currently back both teams to score yes at 1.76. No's available at 2.24. Leicester are getting half a goal head start at 1.85, and the total is 2.5. That's 1.92, the favorite there on the over. So yeah, Mark, over to you. I was thinking Brighton and goals as soon as I saw this pick, and that's where you're leaning towards. So just kind of explain your case for both of those.
Do you want my honest opinion on this game? There's so many bets. I'm struggling to sort of nail down one, so I might have multiple here, but I think the best bet would be to back Brighton to score over 1.5 goals, which would be around 2.1. We didn't have that on the site when I was looking to put my bet in, so I've actually chosen Brighton to win at 2.16 and also over 2.5 goals at 1.88 because it's just all aboard the De Zerbi Express. Just going to keep on backing goals in Brighton games. More than happy to keep supplying those bets while the prices are good. I can see why people want to be with Brighton. Absolutely. Brendan Rodgers at the end of the game last weekend, after seeing Leicester lose to Forest, admitted his team were in a relegation fight. He looked like he'd lost the fight himself. His team have very little resilience about themselves. They're the only club in the Premier League not to take a point after conceding the first goal. And whilst the forward line has looked a little bit blunt, I think there possibly is a chance of James Maddison returning for this. I think it's touch and go, 50-50. That's one to watch. But ultimately, Leicester have managed 1 point against top half teams this season. They've lost 9 of 10 against the top half. They've lost all 4 games since the restart. And if Brighton are in anywhere close to the mood they were last weekend, this could get similar to the game we saw in the reverse at the Amex. I think it was a Sunday afternoon. Brighton demolished them 5-2. just a complete blitz, really. And I wouldn't be too surprised by a repeat. Just destroyed Liverpool last week, and the performance had all the hallmarks of a Liverpool team in their pomp under Jurgen Klopp for me. They pressed, the overlaps, the fluidity of their forward play, the finishing as well, which has been so absent of a Brighton team over previous years. They're doing it all without Trossard as well. It's really quite special what they're achieving. They've averaged 1.94 goals per game in the Premier League this season, which is a huge tally. But it's their best ever return at this stage of a season across any league since 1965, not just the top flight, which is an incredible achievement.
Wow.
But that was only their second clean sheet under De Zerbi and only their fifth shutout of the whole season. So they do give you a chance. And that's the issue when you do back them to win matches. Hence why I prefer to back them to score over 1.5 goals. And I don't really care if they win, lose or draw the match. Obviously, Leicester have players of ability. James Maddison, Harvey Barnes are still quite prominent too. And ultimately, Brighton games are just chaos. The last 8 matches have averaged 4.38 goals. On their travels, all of their matches have featured at least 2 goals. 7 of 9 have gone overs. They've kept 1 away clean sheet. They scored twice or more in 6 of those 9 away days. And those matches have averaged 3.78 goals. So sure, Leicester have been a world away from their form, away from home when playing at the KP, much more introverted, you could possibly say. But surely they've got to come out and try and attack this Brighton team after suffering a really dismal Derby defeat to Forest. You're at home, you're battling for your lives. I'm expecting something more from Leicester, and I think Brighton do give you a chance. So clearly the overs could cop and is under consideration here, but I think that the best play would be just Brighton to score 2 or more goals, and you don't have to worry about the result. But just for clarity, I did put up Brighton to win and over 2.5 goals as my selection, as the other play wasn't available.
Yeah, 2 separate bets, or you can combine them if you're feeling a little bit more aggressive, and the goal line will be available or the team total will be available on the Matchbook sites. Team totals are quite popular in the NFL, not as popular in football, but they are getting there slowly. So it's definitely another angle Mark's unearthed there, particularly if you think the market hasn't caught up with Brighton and their goals. And Adrian, you're in pretty broad agreement here. You're combining Brighton and over 1.5 goals at 2.56, which again looks quite big.
Well, yeah, all the stats that Mark rattled off, I've got written in front of me. It screams goals from Brighton. As he said, they've scored 2 or more in 6 of 9 away games. That should give you confidence that they can do it. They've only blanked in 1 road trip this season. That was a 2-0 defeat at Brentford, which was a bit out of character for them. But since then, they've been absolutely flying. March, Mitoma, McAllister, all in spectacular form, aren't they? Even Welbeck getting in on the act of late. 20 goals they've scored in their last 7 games, almost 3 a game. And when you think that Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, and a previously sort of stubborn Wolves are on that roster of games, it's going some, I tell you. So, and look, having seen Leicester with my own eyes recently at Newcastle, honestly, they were so bad without the ball. No real desire or application. Not a lot of shape, very much playing as individuals, worrying. And I live in Leicestershire, as you guys know, and so not too far from Leicester. And people around here are very, very worried about the form. They think they need a massive rebuild in January, and the truth is, it's not going to happen. So they're in trouble at the moment. They need Maddison fit quickly. I can't for the life of me see them beating Brighton in this game. I think this has got a away win and goals written all over it. So, yeah, I've gone Brighton and over 1.5. It's 2.56, so quite a nice juicy price as well. Yes, that's how I see it panning out.
Yeah, I think we'll lock in that Brighton, the 2 bets, Brighton over 2.5 goals. Over 2.5 goals is 1.88, Brighton 2.16. But there's a lot of different angles as Adrian's gone with 1. Mark's liking that team total as well. So, quick recap of what we have so far. So, we've mentioned the Leicester Brighton bets. West Ham Everton, we're going to go lock in under 1.0 first half goals. Liverpool versus Chelsea, we're going to lock in Liverpool under 4.5 goals. And the Arsenal game, Arsenal under 4.5 goals. Insights.matchbook.com. There'll be a lot of bets thrown at you if you're listening on the podcast or watching on the stream or watching back the stream. So do check out that Matchbook Insights before kickoff as a reminder of all the bets put up on the podcast. We'll go to EFL selections, and Mark, a rare foray to the EFL for you, at least on this podcast, which is great to see.
Yeah, highlighted Plymouth's silly price last week at Ipswich. Bizarrely, they even drifted from what we talked about being 6.5 to 7.5 on the day of the game. Wow. Market support coming even more for Ipswich, really, they are trending as being one of the greatest teams the League One has ever seen in terms of their underlying metrics. But as we all know, that doesn't always translate to points on the pitch. And Plymouth grabbed a late equaliser, picked up a point from the game, the second hard-earned point at a top 6 team in consecutive weeks. They went to Bolton the previous week and earned a 0-0 draw. They're back at home park this weekend. They are the best home team in the country in the top 4 tiers. Their record is astonishingly good, 12 wins from 13. And that's despite playing 7 of their fellow top 10 teams already at home. So it's not like they've just been beating the dross week after week at home park. They've been beating really, really good teams at home. So fully expect them to do the job at home against Cheltenham. You can back them -3/4 on the Asian handicap at around about 1.78. It just means we make money if Plymouth win, a half stakes profit if they win by 1, full stakes if they win by 2 or more goals. They're averaging 1.92 goals per game at home. They've conceded just 9, which is the second best tally in the division. Plymouth have only lost once since August, I should say that, and they actually beat Cheltenham in the reverse game as recently as Boxing Day as well. They went there and won 1-0. That started a 6-game streak for Cheltenham, where they've lost 5 times, including last weekend against Derby, who are top 4 in League One. They lost that game 3-2. So the Robins have lost 7 of 13 away. They've scored just 8 goals, which is the second lowest tally in the division. If you're struggling to score goals, struggling for form, struggling to avoid defeat away from home, the last thing you want to do is play the best home team with the second best home defence. So I expect Plymouth to get the job done. Might get a half stakes win, hopefully get a full stakes win, but Plymouth to win. The alternative, if the price does go, which it may well do because Plymouth are being well backed already this week, would be to pack Plymouth to win and under 4.5 goals, which should come in about 1.8-ish. 11 of their 12 wins have included under 4.5 goals. Bizarrely, the one that didn't was the big Derby game against Exeter. But there we go. Yeah, Plymouth normally one you can rely on at home.
Okay, yeah, and if you are listening to the podcast, as many people do on the Friday evening or Saturday morning, and you have missed the price, Mark's given that alternative there, but we will lock in his other bet on Plymouth there against Cheltenham, currently 1.78. Adrian, over to you I'll let you fly through these couple of selections in the EFL. So
yeah, I'll fly through them as quickly as I can. Yeah, first one is in the Championship. Wigan entertain Luton. And I would absolutely want to get on Luton's side here. You can get Luton on a draw no bet 1.75, which I think is pretty attractive, actually. And I'll tell you what, you can back Luton on their own at 2.62, but draw no bet gives you that little bit of safety. Luton have won 7 of 13 away games this season. That's not shabby, is it? That's a very, very strong record on the road. Only Sheffield United have won more games away from home. Wigan are terrible on their own patch. They've won 2 of 14 home games this season. They've lost, and this is the key stat, they've lost 9 of 14 at their own ground. So, strong away team visiting them. Screams away win for me. They've lost their last 2 at home 4-1 as well. So the natives aren't happy. It's been a real struggle for Kolo Toure. And I just think that Luton are well built to go there and get at least a victory, at worst a draw. They'll be annoyed as well because they were 2-0 up against West Brom at home last week, Luton, and ended up losing. So there'll be a bit of fire, I would imagine, in their bellies. So yeah, Luton, draw no bet at Wigan is selection number 1. Number 2 is Sheffield Wednesday, absolutely flying. They're at home to Fleetwood Town. I want to get them on the halftime and full-time market. So Sheffield Wednesday to be leading at halftime, Sheffield Wednesday to be winning the match. The price is 2.14. They're 1.47 shots to win the game, which is obviously half of the bet. So I think that's quite a nice jump. And you might think, well, yeah, but are they likely to be leading at halftime? Well, they've led at halftime in 15 of 26 games. That's the most by 4 in League One. So they're an excellent team at the start of matches. I've been there for a few games myself where they've started quickly. They've led in 9 of 13 league games at Hillsborough so far this season. They just come out of the blocks and they often get themselves in front. They come into this with 4 straight wins. And they've also converted 15 1-0 leads into victories, 15 out of 18. So, they're good leaders. Fleetwood, in fairness, are quite resilient. They're not that easy to beat on the road. I can't really find any negative stats on Fleetwood other than the fact that they're 17th and they've been beaten in 3 of their last 4 games. So maybe they don't come into the game in the best of form, Fleetwood. So if Sheffield Wednesday get an early goal, every chance they go on and complete all 3 points. So yeah, Sheffield Wednesday half-time, full-time, massive jump in the price.
Yeah, massive jump in the price on Sheffield Wednesday bet, and then the Luton bet, a bit more caution at 1.75. So a couple of different angles there, Adrian. I do like both of them, to add to maybe an Olaka on the EFL on Matchbook on Saturday afternoon. Mark, listeners won't be surprised to know that, well, they will be surprised to know you're putting up a La Liga second division bet here, but they won't be surprised to know that it's Granada at home to Ibiza, and Ibiza sit bottom of La Liga 2. 3 defeats in a row, so it's definitely.
They don't play football. Ibiza.
Yeah,
there's no such team as Ibiza. I'm not having
football.
this. Yeah, they're always out. They're always out of the clubs, aren't they?
I mean, talk about living up to a stereotype there. Like, I couldn't believe when I checked that this morning.
Well, there's no Liga on this weekend. The Bundesliga is back after 3 months, so I did a bit of digging around some other leagues. There's a bet from a massive European game, which I've included in my insights column, which I really like, but I'll save that for that. So I've looked into the Segunda. Granada were relegated from La Liga last season. They're just 1 point off the playoff places in Segunda on the trying to get back to the top flight. As you say, they're hosting rock bottom Ibiza here. They're hot 1.5 favourites, a little short on first glance, but look a bit deeper. This is the best performing home side against the worst away travellers. At Nueva Los Carmenes, Granada have won 9, drawn 2, and lost just 0 games. So 0 defeats from 11, 29 points from a possible 33. They scored 22 goals in those 11 games. They've conceded just twice. So they've kept 7 clean sheets in 9, and they've won without conceding in 7 of 11. All 4 home matches against bottom half have ended 1-0, 5-0, 3-0, and 2-0 home victories. Flip it around, look at Ibiza. They're already 9 points from safety, 15 defeats from 23. They've lost 11 of the last 14. They've won once since early October. Away, they've lost 9 of 11. They've only scored 4 goals in those 11 games. They've played 6 top half teams away, failed to score in any of them, losing 5. And they've lost to 0 in 5 of their last 6 away games against all opponents. So look at the underlying metrics. Granada actually ranks second on expected points in Segunda. Their home dominance is reflected in the data as well, whereas Ibiza are bottom on expected points and similarly dreadful in almost every metric you look towards, home, away, overall, whatever you want. Ibiza are very poor. So it's the best defence, the best home team against the worst attack and the worst away team. You can get Granada at 1.5 to win the game. Bit short, back it at 2.2, Granada to win and BTTS no. Effectively, the home win to 0 does it for me in Segunda, 2.2.
Wow.
Yeah.
If that's not Mark's best bet, I can't wait to hear what his actual best bet is. I mean, those stats are strong.
And he's got a long shot coming up as well. This is brilliant. Mark, we'll actually head to that long shot right now. So Manchester City are playing Tottenham Thursday night, so we don't know the result of that at time of recording. So this price might fluctuate a small bit, but I'd say it would stay more or less the same. You do like a bet. Wolves are travelling to the Etihad, and despite you thinking Man City could still have a run at the title this season, you do think this bet is overpriced. Wolves are half a goal start.
Yeah, it's 5.4. I was very close to sort of putting something Wolves based on this show because I've not been impressed by Man City for quite some time now. They started the season with 7 wins from 9 and unbeaten to start the season. They scored 33 goals in those first 9 games. But since then, they've won 5, drawn 1 and lost 3. 6 clubs have earned more points in that time frame than Manchester City. They've only scored 13 goals in the last 9 Premier League games. They were beaten at Liverpool. They beat Brighton at home, Leicester away, beat Fulham home, lost at home to Brentford, beat Leeds away, held at home to Everton, beat Chelsea away, lost to United. In those 9 games, I just don't think they've really dominated in the same manner we've come to expect of a Man City team. You could possibly say the second half against Chelsea, second half against Leeds, possibly the first half against United last week. Everton didn't offer a huge amount at the Etihad, their rank anyway, but to fail to beat Everton at home is criminal by their standards. Whereas Wolves, I think you have to start treating differently, and I don't think the market has just yet. Julian Lopetegui is such a good coach. He's such a huge coup for Wolves. You take him over almost all of the managers down there. It's no surprise to see sort of their results and performances trending in the right direction. I thought they were unfortunate to lose at home to United, which feels like a decent barometer considering the journey they've been on compared to City. They've been competitive in every game. I think they'll improve further. They've signed Sarabia and Lamina in the last week as well. I think they've got bodies in that squad who can make a difference. And I think there's a squad there that Lopetegui can get the best out of. And I think they will make life difficult for Man City. So, the obvious play here is about Wolves +2 on the handicap. I think they'll go very, very close. If not, should, in theory, you're getting a push at the worst. But I think just for a long shot section, I really wouldn't be surprised to see City drop points here. And I think Wolves to avoid defeat at 5.4 is fine. The alternative is just lay Man City at 1.2, which is to me a horrible price.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing, and that's the nature of the exchange. You will get a bigger price on those Asian handicaps. So plus half a goal for Wolves, available at 5.4. Adrian, I love your long shot here. Like Leeds United, a couple of typical Leeds United things. 5-0 up in the cup, end up winning 5-2. The second one, they absolutely battered Aston Villa for large spells of Friday night football and lost the game. Jesse Marsh literally said that word for word then in his press conference, and he got battered by all the Leeds fan base for saying the truth, I thought. So Leeds 2, Brentford 2, 13.0. Sounds about right to me as a correct.
It just sounds like a very plausible scoreline, doesn't it? Leeds 2, Brentford 2. They're just such a wild team, aren't they, to follow Leeds United? I don't know whether that's a positive or a negative for those that follow Jesse Marsh's side, but yeah, they're good fun for the neutrals. On the numbers, Brentford have scored exactly 2 in 5 of 9 away games, which I think is pretty impressive, actually, from a B's point of view. And looking at the way Leeds defend, wouldn't be at all surprised if they got 2 here. But you couldn't write off Leeds scoring two of their own, could you? Because, they're full of goals. Nonto's in great form. Bamford's back in the side. Rodrigo's scoring. So, yeah, Brentford have had a couple of 2-2 draws already this season, away at Forest, away at Leicester. So it's a little bit of a habit. Leeds have scored exactly 2 in a third of their home games as well. So there you go. The odds aren't too bad there. And of course, in their last one, it was a 2-2 draw at home to West Ham. They've scored in 7 of their last 8 games as well, Leeds United. So, yeah, I just looked at this game and I thought this could be a draw and there'll definitely be goals. So, yeah, Leeds 2-2 with Brentford, 13. Might be worth £1.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those bets for those listening on the pod on Thursday to hang on till Saturday. The lay in there is currently 17. I reckon that'll end up going off around 15.0 agent. So yeah, that definitely looks big to me, particularly when those markets get liquid. So we'll move on to best bets. As I touched on the top of the podcast, if you don't have a Matchbook account, you enjoy the podcast and you'd like to get involved with the exchange, you haven't got an exchange account before, do get involved. That's our best offer so far, is the double the odds offer on podcast best bets. So no pressure on Adrian or Mark. And we'll go to you, Adrian, on this. It's the EFL. So you're sticking to what you've been known throughout the Matchbook podcast over the last few years. It's Stevenage and Leyton Orient. Both teams to score no, 1.7.
Yeah, well, my both teams to score no didn't work last week. So I'm hoping for better luck.
Yeah.
Derby, Cheltenham. I can't believe it. Everything pointed towards it. And within 8 minutes, that was up in smoke. So, yeah, they both scored. So there you go. You can't win them all. Stevenage entertain Leyton Orient this weekend. It is a clash between second and first at the top end of League One. The reason I think they won't both score is that they're very solid at the back, like very solid. Leyton Orient, 17 clean sheets in 26 matches in League Two this season. They just very rarely give anything away, and obviously their focus will be sharp here against Stevenage. As for my former club, 44% of their matches have ended with Stevenage clean sheets as well, which is the third best ratio in the division as well. So they don't give much away. The last 8 Orient games have averaged 1.25 goals. I mean, they've not been good to watch of late. Early on in the season, absolutely flying. The goals have dried up. I've got to say, they've drawn blanks in 4 of their last 8. Yeah, they're not as fluent as they were, but the clean sheets have carried on. 6 in their last 8. As for Stevenage, in good nick, 6 of their last 8 games have gone under 2.5 goals. Been involved in a lot of tight games. Then they've had 5 clean sheets in their last 8 as well. So look, both teams are used to being able to contain the opposition. Neither are in free scoring form. It's first v second. This screams cagey. Under 2.5. It's too skinny for me. So, yeah, BTTS, no. If we double it up, it's certainly at a backable price, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Both teams to score now, 1.79 currently. Stevenage versus Leyton Orient. Mark, over to you for your best bet. And it's another Premier League best bet. And you were right with your goals angle in Brighton game. And you put up a lot of stats about Fulham. I think I saw it on Twitter. I don't want to steal your thunder too much. 80% of their games this season have featured over 2.5 goals, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, they are the goal kings of the Premier League. So surprised to see them available at 1.8 to see over 2.5 goals in their Monday night match against Tottenham. I did have quite a few options here, so hopefully I've chosen the right one. And one of them was the Leeds-Brentford game, which Adrian just detailed. But the price is more appealing here with Fulham and Spurs. For all their their awful form and awful results. We don't know what they did against Man City, but to have Richarlison back, to have Kulusevski back, and Son and Kane available, there's too much quality there. There's too much attacking quality for them to not create chances and not cause this Fulham team problems. A Fulham team who were beaten at Newcastle last week could and should have really scored that goal with Mitrovic's penalty being able to stand. I think it's always quite a harsh ruling that. But other than that, they've been really good fun to follow. Great going forward. That was only the third time Fulham have failed to score this season. The previous two were against Wolves and Everton. They combined for an expected goals tally of 6 across those 2 games. So desperately unfortunate not to score in one or even both of those matches. At the Cottage, they've scored 9 of 10. They've scored twice or more in 7 of those 10 games. However, the issue has been defensively throughout the season. Despite sitting in 6th, their chances conceded, expected goals against, and all similar sort of opportunities allowed metrics park them in the bottom 3 or the bottom 6, really. They've kept just 1 home clean sheet all season. 5 of their 10 visitors to the Cottage have scored twice or more, and that's despite yet hosting Arsenal or Man City. So even Bournemouth scored 2 at Fulham. So if Bournemouth can, I don't see any reason why Spurs can't. 9 of the 10 games at the Cottage have gone overs. 8 of the 10 have seen both teams scoring. And interestingly, in terms of Tottenham, only Man City's matches are featuring more goals per game than Spurs' tally of 3.36. 11 of their 19 have gone overs. 11 of their 19 have seen BTTS. And 5 of their 9 away games have actually gone over 3.5 goals. They've kept just 5 clean sheets all season, but they've scored in 16 of those 19. And interestingly, too, this match pits together the 2 teams who have conceded multiple goals most often in the Premier League. So both Fulham and Spurs have conceded 2 or more goals in 10 matches already this season. So I think going forward, there's a lot to like about both teams defensively. There's a lot not to like about both teams, which should be the not finest recipe for a goal-filled game on Monday night. So 1.8, surprised the line is that low.
Yeah. Well, I think Adrian's trying to come in there, but he's on mute at the moment. Sorry, Adrian, go on.
It's amazing, isn't it? Sorry about that. The amazing that Spurs feature on that list with multiple goals when they spend so much of each game basically just packing the 18-yard box, don't they? Putting men behind the ball. It's amazing that.
Yeah, Adrian's dig at Spurs, I think, was around the 23-minute mark in last week's pod. He's lasted all the way to 57th minute here, so fair play, Adrian. Long pod, guys, but thoroughly enjoyed it, particularly the outright market at the start. Insights.matchbook.com. If there was a lot thrown at you there, that'll be up from Thursday afternoon. And if you are enjoying the podcast, all we ask is you do hit that like button on the YouTube channel and do subscribe to the channel for free. Other than that, we will chat to you guys next week, Miguel, or we won't. We'll have a week off the FA Cup weekend. We'll be back the following week alongside Miguel. We'll be joining Adrian and Mark. Until then, we'll chat to you in 2 weeks. Enjoy the weekend off, and we'll chat then. Bye-bye.